Okay, let's see if we can get this back up and running. Oh, everything crashed. Great. So now I gotta put this all the way back up.
Nobody wants a stained.
The F-22 when it comes to has limits when it.
Okay, holy moly. The game crashed, the thing crashed. I'm gonna go take a pee. Okay, I'm back. No ad block in the big 2025. No, well, I mean, I'm not using my own YouTube account for this, but I think we got back to kind of where we were at. I think.
F-35 does a lot of things. That's kind of a
Okay. Yeah.
That are seemingly thinks the F dogfight, and there seems to be an ocean of difference between what Major Harp is saying and what the F-35 haters are hearing. This isn't even taking him out of context. They're just outright lying about what he's saying. Not.
I mean, I think he said that the F-35 is like okay at things, like, which is fine.
He never said. In context,
thrust to weight ratio in
a podcast. I'll post a link so you
vehicle with an extremely specific mission set, right? A high performance vehicle. F-22.
But Major Harp was an F-22 pilot, and the point he was making in the aforementioned segment is that the F-35 is not as good as the F-22 when it comes to BFM.
The F-22 is very much,
as a point I made earlier, so don't care.
A high performance vehicle with an extremely specific mission set, right? Go fast, go high, kill the enemy in the air. F-35, multi-role fighter, significantly lower performance fighter, but it does a lot more in terms of the scope of its mission set.
He is 100% correct, and we will get to that later. However, even if we take that edited F-16 versus F-35 segment at face value, people don't seem to understand the implications of what he is saying.
There's no... I don't think there's a lot of implications here. If you argue that he's comparing it to the F-22, and therefore his perspective is skewed, then there's no rationale to say that he's comparing it to the F-16. There's no real way to make a logical jumps in any kind of conclusion about things like turn rate or bleed rates or any of the energy maneuverability stuff that we would care about.
F-16 has to be clean in order to beat the F-35.
I don't think he actually said that. He said that the F-16 clean against the F-35 will win every time. And I will add the addendum in theory, because everyone that has ever watched a fighter pilot talk will be like, oh, on any given Sunday, blah, 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 the A-10 will beat the F-22. Or anything like that. where if you go into a fight and you misplay your game plan and the other guy plays against your game plan, like, yeah, the other guy can win. To say that this guy says, oh, yeah, the F-16 will win every time means literally every time, doesn't make any sense. We use the same kind of terminology in War Thunder. I've done it in the past where one of the guys that's featured in the Discord screenshot, 0 minutes, was a guy who, against me, said that the Su-27 could win a dogfight against the F-15 if it just played its cards right. And the situation was like the Su-27 flight model. If you knew the F-15 and you knew the Su-27, you knew both of those, the F-15 could very, very consistently win, probably realistically 90% of the time. If you really want to take it to its logical conclusion 100% of the time. But I think that this is probably the context this guy's talking. And we're like, if the F-15 and the F-35, the F-16, both of them go in the fight, they're equal energy states, and they both play the game, the real life, the way that they want to, the F-16 more often than not wins, and by significant margin. I think that's probably a fair assessment, because the F-16, the way that it is designed, the way that it has kind of came out of the other end of the chute, it's an unstable airframe. It has an angle of attack limitation around 24 to 25 degrees. Its energy maneuverability in terms of specific excess power gain rates and bleed rates is pretty good. Its low speed performance is limited by that angle of attack. However, that limitation is something that the Air Force over the last 30 to 40 years has learned to work around. And because it's only good, in theory, at one style of fight, means that you can learn that one style of fight and do that better than everyone else. Where this is a parallel in War Thunder, where you get two F-16 guys, you get two guys that are good at the same thing, where one does that thing better than the other guy consistently, even in the same plane, that guy will consistently win. And I think there is probably some of this at play in real life, where the fact that the F-16 doesn't do one circle, high angle of attack, first turn, being on like the what I call the inside circle in real life, means that like you go in, you know exactly how the F-16 is supposed to win, and you practice that, and then you're good at that thing, and because you don't really have to worry about the other things, because like the plane can't do those, you're so good at that thing that it just doesn't matter. That's my hot take.
Something that is highly unlikely in a combat scenario. I think we're all familiar with the fact that 4th gen fighters have to carry external stores.
Yes, they do. They also have a thing where they can pull a lever and get rid of those external stores, which is a thing that would very, very most likely happen if you got into a dogfight in real life. I don't think any pilot is going to hedge their bets on being better with internal fuel tanks to win that against especially high off boresight missiles, to not just get the fuck rid of them right away and be like, you know what, we're going to figure out the fuel situation after.
Something that is not a problem for the F-35. Now, there is something he says that I do take issue with. That is the claim that clean F-16s will beat the Lightning II every time. This, I believe, is hyperbolic. The reason is because the F-35 has beaten clean F-16s in BFM combat training.
Okay. Sure. Do we know anything about the context of this training? And oftentimes when you look into these articles, into these claims, the amount of information that you can glean that is actually usable is non-existent. So to put things in perspective, I have a guy that I talk to kind of frequently. He's in the Air Force. And one of the things that he mentioned to me is that in these exercises that they do, they are limited to using military power. So dry power, no afterburner, just for the sake of to conserve fuel. That you can get more iterations done in the same amount of time if you ignore the fact that the afterburner exists, which makes sense if you are doing the training for the benefit of doing the training, not to be like, oh my god, my plane won. Like, I don't think for the guys doing this that actually doesn't matter. That's also the reason that not every single fight is started at a pure neutral position. Just getting benefits of like, how long can you hang on in a negative position where you start on the defensive, and not necessarily can you reverse, but in your situation, success might look like I didn't die for 2.5 minutes, and that's enough time for another guy to come and shoot down the enemy on my tail.
Let's listen to an account from Lieutenant Colonel Ian Knight, a Dutch F-35A pilot. This is an excerpt from an interview he gave for the May 2018 edition of Combat Aircraft magazine. At the time of the interview, he was the commander of the 323rd.
This is not necessarily a bad idea. The issue that you should have with this, though, is this conclusion going to be based off of one interview with one pilot? And what aircraft is that pilot flying? Because what you will find in a lot of these interviews is that the aircraft that is the best in these exercises is whatever aircraft the person being interviewed happened to be flying.
Test and Evaluation Squadron. When our envelope was cleared to practice BFM, we got the opportunity to fight some 4th generation fighters.
So, some 4th generation fighters, doesn't specify what they are. The F-35 was a pig. The first time I showed the training, they had wing tanks.
Remember, back then, the rumors were that the F-35 was a pig. The first time opponents showed up in the training area, they had wing tanks along with a bunch of missiles. I guess they figured that being in a dirty configuration wouldn't really matter, and that they would still easily outmaneuver us. By the end of the week, though, they had dropped their wing tanks, transitioned to a single centerline fuel tank, and were still doing everything they could not to get gunned by us. A week later, they stripped the jets clean of all external stores, which made the BFM fights interesting, to say the least.
This doesn't tell us anything other than, again, some 4th generation fighter, probably the F-16, that the F-35 is better than the F-16 with double external wing tanks, maybe similar with a centerline fuel tank, and then maybe superior to worse without tanks. If your point is that the F-35 is not a horrible, abysmal piece of crap at dogfighting, this is a good indication of it. If your point is that it is the same or on par with the F-16 in clean configuration, this is not anything that I would go off of.
He doesn't say it, but I think the implication is clear. The clean F-16s did better, but still got their asses kicked.
They did better, but they still got their asses kicked. I made the BFM flights interesting, to say the least. Doesn't mean that they lost.
In fact, the F-16s in this particular scenario would have much more maneuverability than typical U.S. aggressor training, because aircraft of aggressor squadrons still have to carry missiles and ECM pods.
Sure. Also, matters probably less than you expect. ECM pods and missiles don't necessarily limit the F-16 to like 7Gs in the same way that being in Cat 3 with like Category 3 with bombs on the ECM matters. Also, the aggressors in America are not trying to duplicate F-16s. They're trying to duplicate things like MiG-29s, Su-27s, adversary, roles. So, like, the physical flight performance here probably doesn't matter that much.
Something else worth mentioning is that Knight precedes this by saying that the performance of the Lightning II falls somewhere between the F-16 and the FA-18 Hornet.
This is actually maybe a good indication. This gives us a high and a low number as far as in terms of energy maneuverability theory is concerned, where in essence, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, the F-18 looks like crap, and the F-16 looks good, and the F-35 somewhere in between. That still means the F-35 on paper is worse than the F-16 and better than the F-18. And it doesn't characterize whether or not it's the F-18E or the F-18C, because the F-18C on paper is better than the F-18E, at least according to congressional reports. This is a wide range that on the surface might be informative and is also not very informative, because at the same aspects, there are places where the F-18, the E, probably is better than the F-35. For instance, at like very, very low speed, the F-18 would not surprise me to be better than the F-35. And it might be better enough than the F-35 and similar enough to the F-35 at medium speeds. The F-18E, if you are having a good day and the other guy's having a good day and everyone's doing real good and does everything correctly, the F-18E might win pretty consistently. It's within the playing field, which is like a very common thing of all fourth generation fighters, of like nobody's trying to force a dogfight because like literally nobody really wins. It's I die to the AIM-9 90-degree off-bore sight missile, and then you died to my ass rammer. Like I don't know.
And then later praises the F-35 for being able to perform BFM while carrying bombs.
So this is actually a pretty valid point, but not maybe in the way that's framed in the video. A lot of fourth generation fighters, F-16 especially, pretty unstable, pretty bad at absorbing asymmetric loads, and the flight control system does impose a lot of limitations once you put a bunch of stuff on it. The Eurofighter is very similar in the same way. That's why they have in part, why they have the aerodynamics modification kit, where they can maintain some of that maneuverability with a bunch of crap strapped to the plane.
Something that the F-16 cannot do without being at a major disadvantage. Now, I don't want to downplay the importance of BVR. This is the way that aircraft are heading. Of equipment is in my response to Rover, that doesn't mean BFM dogfighting is gone.
You don't want to downplay BVR. It's like not the way that aircraft are heading. That's the way they are right now.
Even in an age of BVR combat, the F-35 doesn't just stop working if it finds itself in a situation where it has to dogfight. The most likely scenario is that it would just fuck off and let the F-22 take care of any BFM engagement.
Sure. Maybe. I don't know how the F-35 is going to fuck off from a BFM engagement if it already found itself in a BFM engagement, where like it is within the range where it can be detected on radar. Stealth is good. I don't think it's that good, where if it's getting picked up on an IRST tracker, that it has the luxury of just like fucking off. I think that the Air Force has planned around this, and it's perfectly like understands like how things work. That this is currently against the like people we're fighting, not going to happen, but also in the future against adversaries like China, against other adversaries in like the next 30 years, where fifth generation technology like proliferates, where the F-35 could find itself in that space. But like right now this idea like, yes, if it's visually detected within visual range, it could just like, not do that. Like it doesn't I don't think it has the ability to deny that. Granted, Bright Cloud, the advanced countermeasures and whatnot, it might be able to like, confuse missiles, and maybe it does, and that's all classified. But I mean, like if it's in that aspect of like IR missile range, I don't think it really has a choice.
But the F-35 can, and it will dogfight if it has to. One of the things often highlighted as a deficiency of the Lightning II is its speed, which is often cited as being limited to Mach 1.6. First of all, jets in combat scenarios rarely go above that, let alone their top speed.
This is Vietnam. How far do you cross Vietnamese territory in 1968 if you're going Mach 2? Would be my question. I think that the idea behind this of like looking at this is explicitly like why didn't they go fast? Might be due to reasons that have not as much to do with aerial combat as people think that they do.
Especially when it comes to 4th gen fighters. But something worth noting is that slow speeds are actually where the F-35 is at an advantage.
I don't know about that one.
Which is something that was highlighted by Colonel Ian Knight. When asked about the F-35 size, fuel capacity, and payload when compared to the F-16,
this is the same guy that they were talking about in the podcast earlier.
He says this. Consequently, the F-35 loses energy a bit faster than the F-16 at higher speeds. But the slow speed handling is amazing. The F-35 pilot has the option to continuously point the nose at the adversary, even at ridiculously slow speeds, which is a great capability to have in combination with high off-bore sight missiles and a helmet-mounted sight.
This is exactly the same thing that people will say about the F-18 versus the F-16. This is also the exact same thing that F-16 pilots will tell you that makes the F-16 better than the F-18. So this being kind of like a damning point, isn't. If you don't have access to, in-depth studies of like how 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 or 2 versus 2 aerial BFM works, which none of us have. We have no idea. To make any kind of conclusion based on this is complete, absolutely, like, fucking nonsense.
And remember, 4th generation fighters have to carry external stores. The F-35
They can also jettison the external stores.
would be able to achieve Mach 1.6 with a full internal payload.
Yes, it could. Also, in theory, the F-16 could take all of its external fuel tanks, use those to cruise, and then drop those, sprint to Mach 2, whatever the fuck, shoot its missiles, then turn the fuck around. But at that point, the BFM thing doesn't matter. This is a stupid question. It is. As part of a larger system. Called also the F-22. But also just called the F-35.
Is the F-35 designed for air superiority? Many people say no. I think what causes much of the confusion is this, the high-low mix.
This is a stupid graphic. I hate this graphic. I will explain it a little bit.
In the simplest terms possible, it is a combination of a...
Actually, I'll explain already. The F-18 and the F-18E are in opposite ends of the high-low mix. For whatever reason, the F-35C is in the low part of the high-low mix. I don't know why. This graphic is stupid. Also, the late model F-18s, if you want to compare them in terms of pure flight performance, pure BFM dogfighting performance, which is what this video is about, this plane is better than this plane. There's a congressional report about this plane being not great in terms of that, and the Navy still bought them. The Navy has still had good records with them Because guess what? Dogfighting just doesn't fucking matter. Also, this here, the F-16 versus the F-15, the high-low mix, the F-16 is a better dogfighter, especially in its original incantations, than the F-15. Trying to juxtapose these against each other is really dumb.
A large, maneuverable aircraft designed for air superiority, and a smaller, low, less capable fighter.
Less capable doesn't mean less maneuverable. Less capable means a lot of other things, but doesn't necessarily mean less maneuverable.
Which is designed to do everything else. Oh, but don't...
Why is the Eurofighter in the low category? Same thing with the Rafale. The people that run the Rafale and the Typhoon don't have anything else. If anything, the thing that they have the other thing of is the fucking Tornado, which is basically a bomber that they put air-to-air missiles on. This is stupid. This is a stupid comparison. Once again, like this comparison valid. This comparison valid. This comparison stupid. This comparison really stupid. This comparison left to right. The Su-34 and 32, the ground attack version of the plane, has like the two pilots side by side who does ground attack things, is not a fighter. This is stupid. This is a stupid comparison. This whole entire graphic is very confusing and dumb.
Take my word for it. Let's hear Pierre Spray sum it up.
Why? We don't need to hear him sum it up. It doesn't matter. Pierre Spray's dead. He's been in the ground for like 10 years. Who cares?
The mission of the airplane was to be half of what the Air Force called the high-low mix. It was supposed to be one super expensive, supposedly super capable fighter, the F-22, and then a cheaper fighter of which you were supposed to be able to buy a lot that would do everything else. Beyond air-to-air, and that was the F-35. That whole high-low mix idea was an Air Force PR concoction.
Okay. That's about what Pierre Spray said. Everything up till about this point.
By a lot that would do everything else. Beyond air-to-air, and that was the F-35. That whole high-low...
So everything he says beyond here about the Air Force doing a PR concoction is like basically nonsense. But everything he said before that is like entirely non-offensive and probably somewhat accurate. Like it's fine. Pierre Spray can be right. He's also dead.
Low mix idea was an Air Force PR concoction.
Like the Russian Air Force also has a high-low mix, and China ostensibly has the similar thing. But also saying that these are the same things is difficult because there's language barriers and nuance to it.
Oh my god. You know, even when he had the right answer, he still managed to word it in a way that made it suck. This is essentially what Major Harp was alluding to during that interview. People see images like this, hear the rationale behind it, and assume that a low-capability fighter is not designed for dogfighting or air superiority.
I mean, being designed for air superiority and dogfighting, I think, are like two entirely different things at this point.
Now,
the F-35 and anything modern is not going to be really designed for that because it's stupid. It's dumb. Even the Chinese have like little PowerPoints of like, why are you in a dogfight, Chinese PLA's greatest pilot? And like next slide's like, because you are stupid. And I don't know. I feel like that's not dissimilar to today.
I want to make something very clear. If there is one thing I want everyone to take away from this video, it's this. Just because a fighter is in the low category does not mean it cannot perform air superiority.
Literally everyone that actually paid attention already knew this.
All this means is that it's just not as capable as the high category fighter.
Also, this doesn't mean that the high category fighter is better at dogfighting, or that it actually mattered that much.
Now, some of you have probably noticed something interesting. The F-16, the ultimate dogfighter that took down the F-35, is in the low category. In fact, can we talk about the F-16 for a second?
Sure.
It's worth noting that the F-16 was actually designed as an air superiority fighter, but became one of the most successful multi-role platforms in the world. It also works the other way around. The F-22 and F-15 are high-category air superiority fighters, but are multi-role aircraft. They are perfectly capable of performing outside their air superiority role.
Um. Sure. The problem with this analysis is that the F-16 was designed from the ground up to be more or less good at dogfighting. Adding multi-role capabilities to it did not change that fact. The F-15 was precedent to the F-16, was also exceptionally good at dogfighting in comparison to other things around the same time. The F-16's iterations didn't really compromise that performance in relation to its peers all that much. Granted, if you're going to do a comparison between a very early F-16 with the best possible engine versus what it is now, you would find that the very early F-16 was better. At the same time, the F-15 and the F-22, while they are technically capable of multi-role capabilities, are arguably, at least by all public accounts and by recent experiences, like significantly worse. There's a reason that the F-15E, the Strike Eagle, exists, where integrating all of the hard points, the systems, and making basically the same airframe dedicated to a ground support role with a secondary emphasis on air superiority was a better option than just taking F-15Cs and upgrading them to adding multi-role capability. In the same instance, you don't see F-22s really doing JDAM strikes on Iran. The F-35 is apparently much better than that. I would say, obviously speaking, based on the fact that that's what's being used. So this kind of comparison is also, I'm going to say flawed, but I don't want to, I hate just relying on that. I feel like
Tell
it's
me
kind
if
of a
you've ever
cop-out.
heard this before. The F-22 and the Su-57 are not comparable because the F-22 was designed for air superiority, while the Su-57 is designed to be multi-role.
I haven't ran into that before, but sure. You cannot be more wrong here. F-22 isn't a multi-role, but with air superiority, only while the F-16 is a true multi-role fighter. Okay, I haven't seen this before.
And the Su-57 are not comparable because the F-22 was designed.
Also, everything's comparable. You can just compare them. Just because they aren't designed with the same emphasis doesn't mean you can't compare them. You can compare the 57 to the 22. The 57 is, in most aspects, probably just going to be worse than the 22. In terms of flight performance, it might be better than the 35 by significant margins, where you have a fourth and a half generation type flight performance in a almost fifth generation airframe, though all those documents, whether or not the Su-57 is stealth and what block of it is stealth is completely entirely classified and beyond speculation.
For air superiority, while the Su-57 is designed to be multi-role. No, that's bullshit. You're telling me that the Su-57, an aircraft meant to eventually replace the flanker, is not an air superiority fighter and can't be compared to the F-22?
I mean, the flanker airframe has also undergone the same kind of evolution that other airframes have undergone, where as you reduce weight, as you make things more space efficient, you add more stuff to it to make the plane more versatile. I think that we have seen in Ukraine that Su-35s or even Su-30s are carrying the R-37, the super duper long range air-to-air missile that the Russians have, basically in lieu of the MiG-31. This idea of a super hyper specialized airframe that is specifically only good for this one thing and is performance optimized around that, like, has more or less been superseded over the past 20 years to the point that even the Russians with inferior computer technology, blah, 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 are also acknowledging that. Like, the SU-57 by Justin Bronk's analysis kind of exists as like a low observability flanker to replace what the flanker airframe currently does, just to basically get closer without, maybe you can argue it's not truly stealth. I don't know, and I don't know if it's incapable of being that. Obviously, in 10 years, the refinements to panel gapping and whatnot may bridge the gap. Who cares?
It can't be compared to the F-22. This is beyond short-sighted. Aircraft are a bit more complicated than paper specifications you find on someone's blog. The F-22 is a multi-role air superiority fighter. It can perform air superiority and ground attack missions if needed.
If needed, it can, but it is not optimized for air-to-ground missions, which I think is maybe an important distinction to make here. Whereas the F-35 is kind of sort of optimized to be a system of systems that does everything pretty darn well, without having the cost associated with the very high-end performance requirements of like the F-22. Like, I don't think the F-22 is going to be nearly as good in the same situation as the F-35.
Has anyone who has made this argument ever asked themselves why the F-22 can carry bombs? If you're still skeptical, you could look at the name of the program that the F-35 came from, the Joint Strike Fighter. You guys realize that strike fighters are meant for air superiority, right? Now,
they're also not explicitly like design centered around that. At the same time, I don't know. There's been like, fighters in the designation means it's the best at everything. That's not persuasive.
Now, before I'm accused of making straw men, I want to clarify that this argument is kind of niche. It's not that prevalent. But I have seen people making this type of argument before, and I'm trying.
Okay, this like clip is actually really badass.
Trying to cover all of my bases here. I want to put the final nail into this coffin and make sure this claim never shows its ugly face again.
Conclusion. We got conclusions. We're like an hour in. Conclusions.
So, in conclusion, the F-35 can dogfight and is designed for air superiority.
Okay, can dogfight and is designed for air superiority. I think we need to like draw a diagram of like one way and the other, because air superiority in the modern context is way different than dogfighting. Like, it can dogfight and it holds its own enough that the fact that our pilots are trained better than everyone else means that it can bridge the performance gaps, and the missile capability means that effectively it is better, is way different than mechanically speaking, it is just better.
That's it. There's really nothing else to say. I know it's often frowned upon to say things like this, but anyone telling you otherwise is only wrong. I'm not a historian, I'm just an enthusiast. The reason anyone telling you otherwise is designed for air superiority. That's it. There's really nothing else to say. I know it's often...
So the F-35 is designed for air superiority. Yes. Sure. In the context of everything else, in the context of the way that aerial engagements have evolved with the addition of stealth airframes. There just is like a fact of the matter, like having passive detection, passive targeting, not being able to be seen on radar in a way that allows you to be targeted is truly effective in a way that like we are seeing in Iran. We're seeing it in basically everywhere that's been proven that the idea of like the stealth detecting radar doesn't exist yet. Maybe it exists in the future. that investment in itself is a cost that other people are having to undertake. It might be something that we are undertaking, but currently stealth by itself is something that's incredibly important. It's also something that makes the F-35, the F-22, significantly different than other things in a way that maybe evaluating these based on traditional, like, my go high, shoot missile very far performance metric doesn't matter.
Often frowned upon to say things like this, but anyone telling you otherwise is only wrong. I'm not a historian, I'm just an enthusiast. The research I did was not hard hitting. I just read a few books and found a few accounts from test pilots. Can we please put this to bed? Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video.
Okay, so we finally got to the conclusion. And I have to explain why I hate this video. Because I'm going to go piss, and I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the Squish Face Drunken Podcast. Let me open this beverage here. I'm gonna be like, okay. So, I left you guys with why I didn't really like this video. And the reason I didn't like this video is, like, the more I dug into it, the more I was like, oh. I mentioned earlier that one of the Discord screenshots were from people that I recognize from the War Thunder Sim community, which means that I get to be relevant, you know, because I play War Thunder Sim, and I'm like, yes. And let's talk about that research real quick. So apparently, what it appears at a glance is that research basically amounted to, I asked my Discord and then I reported what my Discord told me. That's not good research, to be honest. I'm sorry. Let me put something up here real quick. So I did do a little bit more digging. There's a podcast, Fighter Pilot podcast with an F-35 pilot, and I think it's like about an hour and 4 minutes into it. The guy talks about the BFM capabilities of the plane. And what you'll find, I think, overall, is that when you kind of read between the lines of, like, what the plane's capable of, it's kind of a halfway in between F-16 and F-18. And one of the things I had going into this, as far as a preconceived notion, is, like, if you gave an F-18 pilot a plane that pulls 50 degrees AOA, bleeds a lot of speed really quickly, has good nose-pointing authority, that if they got that right away, that would be something that's very familiar to them. At the same time, if you give that same capability to an F-16 pilot who is normally limited to, at best, like 25, 24 AOA, is very energy conscious, where his typical fighting tactics are going to emphasize retaining energy, getting behind the opponent over a long term, and getting like directly behind them with an energy advantage, as opposed to cutting inside of the circle and constantly cutting across a turn and kind of playing the game where an F-18 guy will know that he doesn't have a lot of energy to work with, and he needs to use the energy he has like very judiciously, where the F-16 guy's like, hey, I gotta retain energy, and if I do the fight the right way, I'll eventually win. If you give both these guys an F-35, the F-18 guys are like, yes, I know this. This is very similar to what I've already experienced. I know what to do with this. Whereas you give this directly to an F-16 guy with no experience in this kind of fighter, he's going, hey, this is fucking abysmal dog shit. I hate this. And you'll actually see this in War Thunder too. Like, War Thunder does do a pretty good job of duplicating this, of like, there are guys that you'll fight against. So they run kind of the same game plan every single time, and they will run it the same way, slightly better, slightly worse, and you'll have to react to that. There's also other guys that will run a very energy conservative game plan in one instance and then do exactly the opposite the next one. Like, that's kind of the way that I end up playing the game in a way that frustrates people, is I will vary the speed that I go into a dogfight at in a way that I can play a game in a way that might be a little bit counterintuitive, in a way that forces the other guy to make mistakes. Where I am forcing, I'm creating a field for mistakes. And I think that's a valid comparison. I think that the way that happens in real life is 5 orders of magnitude different than War Thunder, but I think we can argue that the parallels are there to the extent that, like, hey, the game's like somewhat realistic, but also that I'm not a fighter pilot, I'm not going to be one. At the same time, like, half these guys that you're watching your content from have informed their opinions based on DCS and War Thunder in a way that, like, is even worse than I have, because I look at War Thunder and go, like, yeah, it's just fucking bullshit. Like, I have to, like, really, like, I always go back to it and go, man, I believe this right now, but it's based on War Thunder. I think anything based on War Thunder is wrong. Whereas these guys, like, approach it from the opposite direction, where they have these preconceived notions based on the books they've read, and then it works in War Thunder. It reinforces the things that they say that they already know in a way that we are kind of arriving towards similar conclusions in ways that are like different, in ways that have like their own strengths and weaknesses. Anyways, we're gonna go to the episode 78, the F-35 lightning thing. I think I got this here, so we'll read we're listening to what this guy has to say. This is a guy who was a test pilot. He didn't do any combat tours, but I mean, I think it's gonna kind of articulate the point.
When it comes to dogfighting, though, big picture, it can hold its own if you know how to fly it. That was also a thing.
Sure.
The initial cadre of the F-35 was typically F-16 pilots. And so when they were learning how to use the F-35, they were using it the way that they typically use their F-16, which was more of a rate fight kind of mentality. They didn't really know how to use the rudders yet. And when they figured out how to effectively use the platform the way that it was designed, they realized that it can be just as an effective dogfighter as other fighters. It's heavier, though, so it's always going to be a little more sluggish. But the comparison's always funny to me. Like, if you were to take an F-16, a clean F-16, it's going to...
We get back to the clean F-16, by the way. We're back there. Let's not deny that.
do very well in a dogfight against a lot of platforms.
Yes, the clean F-16 will do very well against a lot of platforms in dogfight. That is... the F-16 is, by and large, considered one of the benchmarks that everything else is compared to. The Rafale and the Eurofighter should be superior to it, but not by such significant margins that it's a completely, like, in-the-bag fight. There just is limits to what a pilot can sustain, what a pilot can hold, where If you talk to F-16 pilots, you talk to Eurofighter pilots and whatnot, the F-16 clean always has a chance, and it really does come back down to what I said earlier. Like, if the F-16 guy, like, works that plan, he's got more experience, he knows what he's doing. If the other guy makes a small enough mistake or a large enough mistake, the F-16 can win that. The Italian Air Force, for instance, uses the F-16A as the benchmark against the Eurofighters as far as like dogfight training is concerned. And you also, I think, have to understand that dogfight training is not the preeminent thing that NATO pilots are doing at this state. Where it's a thing, it's an event, but it's the same instance of like trying to do like a 2 mile or a 5 mile run for like a fitness test. Like, yeah, it's there, but if you train for it and you're the best at it, that doesn't actually mean you're the best at being a pilot or a soldier. There are guys that can run 5 miles and basically maintain a 4-minute mile, and they're like as skinny as sticks and they can't carry a backpack. There's also guys that are fat as fuck. They can't carry a backpack, but they also can't run 5 miles. So like you have like a range there. And training for the fitness test thing of like this very specific thing doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yes.
But the F-16 is never clean, right? It's never in
This is also the point that the other guy made in his video. The F-16 is never clean.
combat clean is my point.
Right. You're going to at least have pylons.
Yeah, you're going to have pylons, you're going to have other weapons that are going to slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have targeting pods and things that you're going to go into combat with. So the F-35 has all that internal, and it is fairly effective. I'd give it a rating of a B, and it was very similar to flying a Strike Eagle.
Okay. Rating it a B, it also saying it's similar to a Strike Eagle is kind of conflicting. Now, it might not be. It might not be conflicting. We all might be collectively underestimating the energy maneuverability characteristics of the Strike Eagle. The Strike Eagle might actually be like the BFM, like, GOAT of F-15s. We just don't know. We don't know how much pylons affect the drag. Obviously, we can go and calculate that if we really, really want to. But I think the articulation of this interview is like the F-35 is within spitting distance. It's not better. It's not designed with that in mind because the current F-16 variations that we have are degraded in those aspects as well because as time has gone on, they've added more stuff to them.
You get one good G-pull at the beginning, depending on your altitude. You know, you're able to rate effectively. It's fairly good at low speed, high angle of attack, unlike an F-16. And you can get into a tree. I mean, I've been into a tree, and
I think this is actually a pretty important part of the interview when he talks about a tree. He is talking about a specific set of circumstances that ends up in a high angle of attack, low speed situation. In order, I think, to get there, a couple of things have to happen, and if the other guy knows that those things can happen, he can play the game against those possibilities. This is something that happens in War Thunder all the time, where we can make semi-direct comparisons.
you know trees. I don't know if your listeners, you know.
I do, but the listener may not. So
Yeah.
explain that very briefly.
Yeah, so a tree would be really high angle of attack. Think of basically going as slow as you possibly can without falling out of the sky. So your nose is really high.
Mhm.
You're in a tree to try to slow down and cause the other person to kind of fly out in front of you.
Right.
Because they can't fly that speed.
This really, really sounds like War Thunder stall fighting. If you're going to make a direct comparison to War Thunder, this is the goofy stall fighting stuff we do. Granted, in real life, definitely probably not exactly the same. Like, definitely probably not comparable at all. But if you're going to make a direct comparison, probably very similar.
Slowly. The F-35 can do a tree fairly effectively. You know, you're talking low 100s I can be in a tree. And, the Hornet is probably lower than that. I think, 80, 90 knots you could probably be in a good tree.
So these two performance metrics, he is making the point that the F-35 is similar to the F-18 in this like specific maneuverability regime, but the F-18 is better if you say that going slower is better.
Well, but then you have rules for the training that you're doing that you generally don't want to get that slow, because if you do depart, but yeah, I've seen.
So there's also rules for training of like you don't want to go too low, you don't want to depart flight, you don't want to crash into each other, which is like a completely different thing that like simulator pilots like don't care about. Like, I will play my plane within like 3 inches of yours because I'm not going to die if I fuck it up. Oh no, I blew up in a video game. Whereas in real life, if you did any of the things that like half the people do in video games to try to gain an advantage, yeah, cool, maybe you win the dogfight and then you get reprimanded for doing something that's really dangerous and like killing the other guy. Because think of it, if you do like a very high deflection head-on shot, where both guys are basically nose to nose, the other guy's got like a 15 degree per second, like, or a 15 degree advantage where like the other guy can't get a hit. Those planes pass at like fucking 25 feet, and you fuck that up, you die.
Seen it down to 90.
I'd say it's effective. It's maneuverable, and
All right, but come on, Cinco. Saying that it's pretty good or as good isn't as salacious as saying, "Oh, look, we just spent all these billions of dollars, and it's not even as good as this aircraft that's been around for 40 years." I mean, of course the media is going to love that story, even if it's not completely true. So, okay. But again, I think, dare I say, the Top Gun bros are going to come take away my patch, but perhaps, dare I say, the era of BFM is over. I mean, if an F-35 is in a dock.
Okay, so I've actually watched the rest of this, and I've listened to it. I listened to it earlier. The guy goes on to make the point that maybe washing out 20% of your fighter pilot cadre in initial training is maybe not the best for today's variety, and that might be fair. I don't know. I'm not a fighter pilot. I'm gonna walk around with a backpack and be like, yep, this fucking sucks. I hate sleeping outside with a gun, but it's whatever. I'd sign up for it. At the same time, this idea that the F-35, I think, is designed for dogfighting is anything other than really basically good enough at a dogfight is kind of erroneous. I haven't, the case that has been made by the Dalek video, to me, just doesn't exist. And let me explain why this doesn't exist. Because I went even further beyond. I'm gonna have to share my Discord screen. So we'll go, let me fucking run the risk of fucking myself over. So we'll get display capture here. And we go here, and I'm in the Daleks hangar. I did a search of dogfights and stuff, and this is all, like, the worst people. So we go here. Murph is not featured in the conversation, but goddamn, Murph is dumb, man. Like, I like anything Murph says, I immediately want to jump off a fucking cliff. I'm gonna go BFM. Like, why do people bring up radars? Blah 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 blah. There's a point, so I can actually find it. Let me find it here real quick. Because I found. Let me see. I'm gonna find. I'll find it. I found it. So there is this guy that says, nice video, just wanted to add some info on top. There's an EM diagram for the F-35 in the public space, and we can easily tell that the 9G limiter, that it's for the F-35A. The only real problem is the gross weight, as seen in the two given graphs here, blah, blah, blah. And we have this here. We have maneuver performance. Notice how it's cropped. Notice how there's an EM diagram here. And there's no labels for it. There's no nothing. Also note, there's F-16 stuff here for F-16A with a 220, F-16CG 220, 15,000 feet. This is from a Korean presentation. This is from a Lockheed Martin presentation, and I can actually prove that this diagram comes from one of my Discords, where we looked at it and goes, yeah, we can't actually fucking prove shit based on this. Like, we don't know. Maybe like an F-35 Lockheed Martin intern like misclicked and put the real EM diagram in a PowerPoint presentation that's been unclassified for like 20 years. Or maybe this is just generic and doesn't actually fucking matter. Same thing, you can see it here. Delay for the C's case, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to the Yacht Club here, the yet another War Thunder Discord server, and we will go to the Raptor documents. And we go down here, and we got Prey, we got Chat, we got the AICA. This is exactly the same EM diagram. Exactly the same test points. Exactly from the same documents here, where you go here, and we got this, and blah, 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 and you can go through this and find all the shit in here. This EM diagram that's being posted in the Daleks hangar thing, for all intents and purposes, fucking non-shit. Like bullshit, we don't know, there's no way to verify it. Fucking horse shit. Like, now granted, this is after the video, but still. This is being downstream of War Thunder Sim fucking Discord user stupid idiots. So, anyways, he's like, oh, you're showing the podcast. Like, yeah, I'm showing the podcast. Like, that's the point. Like, I'm not gonna, like, use the podcast thing and not showcase it. Like, I have, like, there's a whole entire thing. All of this stuff here that this video is based on really does appear to be downwind of two stupid people from the War Thunder Sim community or War Thunder community just yapping and another guy reacting to it. And it means that this whole entire video is glorp shit. That's my TED Talk. That's my TED Talk. Who's got any question? Oh, you didn't just show the Discord at all. I didn't show the Discord. Okay. Let me go. I had display capture. Let me get the window capture. So when I go to Discord capture here, if I go to EM diagram, we got this on February 21st, so about 10 days ago. This EM diagram here, that is pixelated as fuck, tops out at like 11 to 12 degrees per second. So this is the Daleks hangar. This is the thing of the guy that made a video. You can see the same guy has posted the F-35 performance flight test points diagram, and trying to derive any solid performance points from this is difficult. I go to the Yacht Club here, yet another War Thunder server. This is my super secret thing. Go to Prey, and guess what? This is the same diagram. This was posted in July of last year, where we kind of looked at this and goes, hey, is this plane going to be good in War Thunder? And the public documentation is LMFAO, slower than Super Hornet, laugh at this user, a low 12 degrees per second goes hard. And there's a point that I kind of go down here. I'm like, actually, it's 12 degrees per second at like 30,000 meters, so therefore it's the best plane in the game, because there's no performance like stuff to go off of here, that even if you assume that some Lockheed Martin intern took the official EM diagram and slammed it into basically what is the equivalent of thumbnail, that this makes sense. In reality, this is a generic EM diagram, most likely. If it's the F-35 EM diagram, you need a college degree to verify it. Doing it from the ground up would be better than just going, yeah, it's in some random presentation, therefore it's accurate. This is like perfectly. This is fine for War Thunder bug reporting standards, where the guys in here understand that we're playing War Thunder. We don't care that the F-22 flight envelope comparison of like the official one is like actually pretty fucking good. Like it's disgustingly great. It's fantastic. Mach 1.7 on no afterburner. We have a lot of like public sources on it. We have like the source here. This is going to go into the maneuverability, as I said. Maneuverability, power sustain, blah, blah, blah. It to be determined. We got some stuff. I haven't went through and animagliated the stuff into like any kind of coherent narrative. But we do got some stuff. But it doesn't matter. Like it's glorp shit. Like this whole idea, like the F-35 is like designed as a dogfighter. I don't think that it is. I don't find that case persuasive. It definitely has a component of energy maneuverability theory involved in it, but the degree to which that was set as a precedent is almost definitively way below literally everything else that was designed beforehand. Like it being somewhat comparable to an F-15 or an F-8 or F-16 F-18 is perfectly fine. Like that's acceptable. It being better, I don't know. I want to see some proof, and I don't think I'm going to see any proof until like 50 years from now, and I don't think we will see proof because there are mechanical limits to the wing area that you have, the efficiency of that wing area that you have, the engine that you have, and the weight of the plane, in a way that the F-35 is not able to overcome those physics. And that's actually fine. It's fine that it's not good at a thing. Because that thing is irrelevant. That's my TED Talk. Anyways, do I have any questions before I drink 16 more beers and die of alcohol poisoning? I'm going to put that on the black thing so we can't see the weeb stuff. And then go to the Twitter. Because it's rough. It's rough for me because I like the F-35. I like the way it looks. I like the way that it does the thing. It's great. It's a great plane. It is proving the things that it does well. The program is arguably horribly mismanaged, depending on the time frame. I think the Bill Sweetman critiques of the program are probably reasonably valid. I think the Bill Sweetman critiques of the performance are probably nonsense. Granted, they might not have been nonsense like 15 years ago when we didn't know. We didn't know if the Air Force was hedging its bets correctly, which is fine. Currently, it appears to be working pretty damn good. It didn't get blown the fuck up in the same way the Rafale did against Chinese radars, which apparently Iran had Chinese radars. Granted, you can make that argument that, no, the Iranians are dumb because they're brown. And also, the Indians are dumb because they're brown. And that's why the Rafale got shot down and also why the Chinese radars didn't work. But, I mean, like, they gotta go based on what we see. And what we see is, like, the F-35 is a good plane. It's a good plane in the fact that it does support the rest of everything else that exists. Because you can make the argument that the F-18G Growler is just as important as the F-35. I think in modern context that's a good enough argument to make. I think there's enough evidence out there that says the Growler is good. Anyways, responding to the questions I have. So unfortunately, the previous stream, it's things got nuked. Piece of Dwarf says, okay, it's War Thunder. I don't care. Don't care about War Thunder. What has Murph done other than glaze the MiG-29 and downplay the F-16? Honestly, I don't know. I don't want to make this thing into, oh my god, he has a skill issue. At the same time, when I look at the kind of correspondence, it's Murph, it's Mutin, and it's 0 minutes. All three of these guys are not allowed to talk on my server. I think Murph is banned. I think 0 minutes has never showed up and would have been laughed out. I think Mutin exists on the periphery and like barely talks. None of these guys should be talking about dogfighting based on like what I've seen them do in War Thunder. Like this idea that like energy maneuverability theory is not a my plane has higher rate number at certain speed, therefore I win if I stick to the certain speed. Like it has not like occurred to them. Like it just doesn't exist. The idea that the Mirage 2000 and War Thunder can beat the F-16 consistently enough in probably a lot of situations that a lot of people don't think that it does has not registered to them. I've watched Murph fight. I've watched Murph try to duel on the MiG-29. He tries to sit at like basically Mach 0.8 and run people out of fuel. The dude has no idea of geometry beyond reading rate number and then sticking to rate number. Boring as fuck. Monster says I beat Murph simming 29 with the F-14A 8 times out of 10 before he claimed the MiG-15 could beat the 14A and then proceed to lose another 2 times. Yeah, that sounds about right. The 14A should not lose to the 29, or no, the 14A should lose to the 29. You can do a vertical spiral against the 14 that it cannot keep up with the 29 and then drop down on it. The fact that Murph has made his whole personality about the 29 and War Thunder and can't figure that out, I think says enough. Said, should this go on? Will you play the F-35 and sim right now? If it existed, I would play the hell out of the F-35. Like, I think the F-35 and War Thunder, if it has a flight model similar to the F-18, I will still like it. I don't care if it's bad. The F-22 players, the Su-57 players, they're still going to fly in front of me. I'm still going to fucking shoot them. Like, I'll just shut up and win. So, wait, in the podcast, I said it's worse than the F-15A at low speeds, but better than the F-16. I mean, being worse than the F-18 at low speeds is, like, still means that you're pretty good. And also being better than the F-16 at low speeds isn't, like, a high bar to cross. So you have, like, a very, like, wide range of perspectives. It's kind of like going, like, yeah, your car is faster than a Volkswagen Bug, but slower than a fucking Ferrari. Like, okay, cool, that told me nothing. Now I can diagram for the F-35 being VTOL, thanks. No, I don't think so. Let's give it the MiG-29 FM. I think the MiG-29 FM and F-35 FM currently might be similar, and based on the way players play the game, I don't think that will be like I people are gonna hate it, but I like the F-35. I don't care. I'll also play it. Didn't the Chinese ship radar burn to the ground as ECM? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I have no idea. I think any reporting you see to anything to that, I would completely disregard it. Don't know. Can I play that 35 right now? Yeah, sure. I'm a War Thunder sim player. I win. EMOS to F-14 because nothing when the MiG-29 goes vertical. I mean, it can if it conserves speed and then follows it up. Like it's. I don't want to be in a MiG-29 going like straight vertical. I'm just hoping the other guy like doesn't hit me from 500 meters away because I thought that just going vertical would win. Because Gatling guns are pretty good. Because he says Murph only wanted to dual unlimited fuel MiG-29. Yeah, that sounds about right. M4K, don't care. Well, the F-35's EO2 has to be able to use as IRST. I don't know. The win says he's not an F-47 pilot and it's better than the MiG-29 at low speed and better than the Su-27 high speed, but worse than the F-4E in aura speed. I don't think anything beats the F-4E in aura speed. I think the F-4E is the GOAT. That's what I'm gonna conclude the podcast with. F-4E the best. Everything else horrible. There's a reason the F-4E is called the Rafale Eater. Because it eats Rafales, which is like literally the best plane in the world besides the F-4E. So the F-4E, the best. Everything else, dog shit. Make more F-4Es. The Israelis were on something when they put bigger engines in the F-4E, and they should have done that. That's the whole stream. That's the stream. I'm gonna go